Hey guys, how's it going? This is Acts 10. Now, I got to get this filmed. I'm hoping I'm not going to get a phone call during this because I actually have a bunch of stuff to go do today. But we're going to see if we can get through it real quick. You guys know what we've been talking about, the conversion of Paul, the stoning of Stephen, and now we're at Cornelius sends a delegation. Now, what we're seeing now at this point in the book of Acts is that the apostles are starting to be shown a lot of things. A lot of things are being exposed. The church is being built. A bunch of changes are happening, and it's even now there's still incredible miracles going on. Now some troubles are going to start to really start to come out. But in the midst of those troubles, miracles are going to happen. So the Lord is still doing incredible things here, and we're going to witness this. We're also going to see from this point forward, we're going to start seeing the exposing of the shortcomings that are still in the apostles, even after they're made apostles, and how the Lord is going to do a work in them, and we get to see that. Now, what that shows us is that's a testament to the fact that we all have these shortcomings too. We're all imperfect too. But the Lord will do a work in us. It's beautiful. So Cornelius sends a delegation, Acts 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian regiment. So we know where he was, where he was from. A devout man, and one who feared God with all his household, who gave alms generously to the people and prayed to God always. About the ninth hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision an angel of God coming in, and him saying to him, Cornelius. And when he observed him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? So he said to him, Your prayers and your alms have come up for a memorial before God. So this is a really, really nice guy, a really good guy, and he understood. Verse 5, Now send men to Joppa and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging with Simon a tanner, whose house is by the sea. He will tell you what you must do. And when the angel who spoke to him had departed, Cornelius called 2 of his household servants and a devout soldier from among those who waited on him continually. So this guy was a high rank. Verse 8, So when he had explained all these things to them, he sent them to Joppa. Now here's something good, because here's Peter's famous vision. Verse 9, The next day, as they went on their journey and drew near the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. Then he became very hungry and wanted to eat, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance, and saw heaven opened, and an object like a great sheet bound at the 4 corners descending to him and let down to earth. In it were all kinds of 4-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. So we're going to see one of the first shortcomings that were in Peter. Peter was still pretty legalistic. The Lord is opening his eyes and helping him understand. Verse 14, But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything common or unclean. He still had some legalism in him. Verse 15, And a voice spoke to him again the second time, What God has cleansed, you must not call common. This was done 3 times, and the object was taken up into heaven again. Verse 17, Now while Peter wondered within himself what this vision which he had seen meant, and you would think as an apostle he would know, but he still struggles. It just goes to show you, no matter what your calling is, you're still imperfect. Behold, the men who had been sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. And they called and asked whether Simon, whose surname was Peter, was lodging there. While Peter thought about the vision, the Spirit said to him, Behold, 3 men are seeking you. Arise, therefore, go down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. These are lessons for us. These are lessons for us, guys. Listen closely. Verse 21, Then Peter went down to the men who had been sent to him from Cornelius and said, Yes, I am he whom you seek. For what reason have you come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, one who fears God and has a good reputation among all the nation of the Jews, was divinely instructed by a holy angel to summon you to his house and to hear words from you. Then he invited them in and lodged them. On the next day, Peter went away with them, and some brethren from Joppa accompanied him. Verse 24, And the following day they entered Caesarea. Now Cornelius was waiting for them, and had called together his relatives and close friends. So this is a very important thing here. And what this is going to show is that anybody can be saved. It's a work of the Lord in the hearts of the people. Verse 25, as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter lifted him up, saying, stand up, I myself am also a man. Peter knows he's still human. Verse 27, and as he talked with him, he went in and found many who had come together. Then he said to them, you know how unlawful it is for a Jewish man to keep company with or go to one of another nation? So now Peter is starting to see why God did what he did and showed him what he showed him, because he's starting to realize the legalism has to go. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Verse 29, therefore I came without objection as soon as I was sent for. I asked them, for what reason have you sent for me? So Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, your prayer has been heard, and your alms are remembered in the sight of God. Send therefore to Joppa, and call Simon here, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging in the house of Simon, a tanner by the sea. When he comes, he will speak to you. So I sent to you immediately, and you have done well to come. Now therefore, we are all present before God to hear all the things commanded you by God. Now this particular centurion, Cornelius, he may have been there at the cross when the crucifixion of Christ was happening. That may be why he is the way he is. We don't know. Verse 34, then Peter opened his mouth and said, in truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. They're understanding that salvation is for everybody. Verse 36, the word which God sent to the children of Israel, preaching peace through Jesus Christ. He is Lord of all. That word you know, which was proclaimed throughout all Judea and began from Galilee after the baptism which John preached. How God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, who went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed by the devil, for God was with him. And we are witnesses of all things which he did, both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they killed by hanging on a tree. Him God raised up on the 3rd day and showed him openly, not to all the people, but to witnesses chosen before by God, even to us who ate and drank with him after he rose from the dead. At verse 42, and he commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that it is he who is ordained by God to be judge of the living and the dead. To him all the prophets witness that through his name whoever believes in him will receive remission of sins. So what Peter did was he gave him the gospel. Here's the gospel. Cornelius, you actually saw some of this. You were present for some of this because they were all in that region at that time. So it looks like Cornelius might have been present for quite a bit. So he came to faith. He understood. Goes with the saying, seeing is believing. Verse 44, this is an incredible testimony. While Peter was still speaking these words, the Holy Spirit fell upon all those who heard the word. No baptism had happened. The Holy Spirit, no hands were laid on. The Holy Spirit fell on the people because they believed while he was in the middle of his speech, while he's talking. So that takes a lot of these false doctrines these people are teaching about you have to be baptized to get the Holy Spirit and blows it out of the water. It's not part of it. It's not part of salvation. Baptism is a result of it. Baptism is an obeying of the command of Christ. He said, believe and be baptized. You believe and go get baptized. It's not a bad thing. But you don't get baptized to be saved. You get baptized because he said get baptized. That's it. Obviously, baptism isn't a requirement because the Holy Spirit jumped on all these people. Now, here's something interesting here. Verse 45, and those of the circumcision, which were Jews, who believed were astonished, as many as came with Peter, because the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on the Gentiles also. So this particular incident was to be a sign, to help them understand. Gentiles are going to get the gift too. Anybody can get it. Verse 46, for they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. Then Peter answered, "Can anyone forbid water that these should not be baptized who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have?" And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Lord. Then they asked him to stay a few days. He's like, these guys already got the Holy Spirit. They believe the Lord has blessed them. Do we have water? Can we get them baptized? Let's baptize them. Notice the baptism was a secondary thing. It's not part of salvation. So what God did here with Peter and with those that came with him who were of the circumcision is he corrected their understanding about things. First of all, don't call Gentiles common. I have chosen them too. My salvation goes to everybody. Second of all, don't look down on anybody else. Get rid of your legalism. Get out of all this stuff, all these statutes and stuff. Get out of it. I don't want you in it no more. That's not part of the requirements. Get away from that stuff. Open the door. Number 3, it's my will and not yours. God showed them it's his will. It's my will for this person to be saved. That person's getting saved. If it's my will that you go and you preach to that person, you're going to preach to that person. So God is correcting a lot of these shortcomings in the understanding of the apostles. Peter had a lot of issues, but he was still a very faithful man. He was still chosen by God and to become an apostle. So the Lord is fixing some things, correcting some things, showing him the truth. Now there's going to be a future incident between him and Paul, but it's again to correct another shortcoming, some hypocrisy that he had. The Lord never leaves his people. He uses these things as examples. He uses these things to show us the truth, to give us a gut check. To let us know that we can't be perfect either. Because if the apostles weren't perfect, how can we even begin to say we're perfect? How can we even begin to... We're so far removed from this time frame. There is nobody on this earth as good as those men back then. Who can even begin to think they are? We have the Bible at our fingertips. These people were lucky to even have a piece of a scroll. We have the Bible at our fingertips and don't read it enough. Ask yourself, what if we brought Peter up to now and stood him on the earth? What do you think he'd do? Peter would lose his mind. He'd be in the pulpits, pushing the pulpit over, shoving the pastors out the door, and then closing the door and locking it. You can't pastor this church anymore. Who do you think you are? And he would stand up there and he'd tell everybody in there, y'all going to hell? You are if you're not believing what the gospel is. Here's the gospel. And he'll lay it on hardcore. He wouldn't cut anybody any quarter. Take anybody from back then who was preaching the word and bring them to now. And what would their reaction be? They would be horrified at what they see. You people have full access to all the writings, and you don't even read it? What's the matter with you? Who can you call yourself a Christian? Get out of my Father's house. Yeah, they would lose it. They would lose their mind. Probably a good thing that the Lord doesn't allow that to happen, because the people would kill him in a heartbeat. There's signs at protests. Bring Jesus back, we'll kill him again. Seen pictures of it, seen video of it. They think it's a joke. They're blind. Just like we talked about this morning. They're blind. And they're leading the rest of the blind. The Lord will open their eyes. Just like he opened the eyes of these men. Just like he works with his people. Just like he corrects and sharpens us and shapes us and molds us into what his will wants for us. Those who don't believe, those who are blind, those who can't see, he's going to open their eyes. And they will see the truth. You can bet on that. And what they choose to do after that, or with that truth, is a different story. But he will open their eyes. And everybody will be changed. Because the day is coming when all of it will be exposed. And so everybody's going to be like, oh, well, guess I was wrong about that one. Yep. But what a wonderful thing that the Lord does in his people. Even though there's issues, in the greatest of the greats, he fixes it. It's up to us whether we choose to accept that or not. Lord, I see what you're doing. I'm going to change. That's all he wants. See what I'm doing. Acknowledge it. Change. Because what he's doing is making us better able to serve him here on this earth while we're still here. Thereby also making us better able to serve him in heaven, which will be better. All right, guys, that was Acts 10. Tomorrow will be Acts 11. Peter defends God's grace. So we're going to see this story continued. What an amazing story. People hearing for the first time, Gentiles, and the Holy Spirit jumped on them like white on rice, just landed on top of them. I ain't waiting for this Peter to get done talking. Boom. I wonder if it made the house shake. They all started hollering and yelling, speaking in tongues. And those of the circumcision that were saved got a reality check. God truly has shown mercy to everyone. Yep. That's why we can't count anybody out, because you never know what the Lord's doing. And he'll take people to some dark places to bring them back into the light. Sometimes the shortest trip or the easiest way to the light is through the darkness. And that's what he does. And we see that evidenced here. All right, guys, that was Acts 10. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.